Hey, assalamu alaikum. I'm in my garden and just tending to the tomato plants that I have currently growing. And I wanted just to go through just some techniques. I'm just teaching the kids, and obviously, as they do certain things, I'm giving them healthier suggestions. And I thought, why don't I record it in case anybody else can benefit from this? So with a tomato, you have the main stem that will grow tall, depending on your variety. If this is a vine tomato, you then have a stem that will come out. You also have a flower. Now this is the flower stem. It will tend to start off looking like this. Then it will gradually open up and look like that. And then it will get pollinated and turn into this. I'm trying to zoom in. I'm doing it on my phone. But the idea is that little green knobbly bit there, that's your tomato. So it goes from stem to flower, and then pollinated turns into a tomato. Now, when people are training, sorry, it's the morning. When people are training their tomatoes, they do certain things which may seem simple, but ends up having a big knock-on effect in the future. And that could impact them as to why they are not producing enough tomatoes, or why their tomato plant gets sick. So number one, most common thing is tying up their tomato. Now, you look at this stem, and I would say it's less than maybe a baby finger width, and people tie ties very close to the bamboo support, right? And what people don't realize is that over time, as the tomato plant becomes to get stronger and thicker and taller and heavier, that stem becomes thicker and thicker and thicker. Now, if you tie your plant and it's super tight to your bamboo, what's going to happen is it's going to suffocate it. And in some cases, the plant could get so weak that it ends up basically dying. Or worse, you will get fruits that become sick. So my advice is, when you are tying your tomato plants, you want to give as much room. So I'm going to give an example. I can fit at least 2 fingers through this tie, to give that tomato plant enough room. And yes, your tomato plant will wobble when it's windy, but you want that. You see how my plant is moving in the wind? You actually want that, because that is going to train your plants and start thinking that, wow, this area is quite windy. I need to make sure I become thicker and stronger. And once this stem becomes thicker and stronger, it will be able to be more efficient and be able to get all the nutrients your tomato needs to thrive. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is people use plastic ties. Now, I would never encourage that, because plastic is really hard and abrasive. So what you don't want is, as your plant is moving, it's rubbing. And we all know what it's like to have a paper cut or a friction burn or a carpet burn. It's not a nice feeling. That can stress your plant. And also plastic, if we can avoid plastic as much as we can, even better, right? I'm not perfect, of course. There are things that I do have that is plastic, but if we can reduce it, it's even better. Thirdly is the position of where you keep your ties. Now, if we look here, if I go back to the anatomy of a tomato plant, you have your stem, you have your branch leaf. So this is the branch that has all of the leaves. And then you have your tomato branch. That's your treasure. The whole point of doing all of this is to make sure you get the most tomatoes. If you keep putting a tie that is leaning on your tomato plant, or the branch that holds the tomato, you can actually weaken it, and over time that could end up getting damaged or injured and end up stressing out your plant, which means that you won't have the most tastiest tomatoes. So my advice is, I've cut this anyway, to not have it in that space, but try to find a branch that has no tomato leaves and put it in that corner. So let's just say a storm does happen, I don't mind losing this branch. You know, worst case scenario, I lose this branch, nothing happens. But if I lose this stem, I've lost potentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've lost 10 tomatoes by losing that stem there. So that's my quick tip. Again, allow your tomato to have movement. That is good. You want it to have movement. That is fantastic. Make sure that you are using, you know, twine, something that can break easily and not abrasive, like plastic. Making sure that you are tying it in an area where it's not leaning on the actual tomato stem, but you want it leaning on like a branch arm. And the final bonus tip I would give is I never use any stake from the beginning. I will only introduce my stake once I have my first flower, which is here. Then I introduce a stake. I want my tomato to flow in the wind for as much as possible so that it can try to develop a thicker stem. So yeah, these are my top tips. I hope that helps. And if you have any more questions, feel free to message.